Scientists say that the most abundant element in all life is carbon, and carbon atoms were forged in the furnaces of stars that exploded. Essentially, we are all made of stardust. Every living thing on this planet has carbon atoms from stars that died through explosions. And, just the death of a star, the superheated energy creates carbon. This element is then vital for life, or our kind of life. Now, there may be all kinds of life, and they've been saying it for years, but just don't seem to admit it to themselves. They don't seem to admit it openly. Do you need Dr. Frank Drake's equation to say to you, life is in the galaxy, when you can just hear a scientist say, carbon, the most abundant element in all life on this world as we know it, was formed from the furnaces of other stars. Not the star we have now, but the stars within the galaxy we live in. So you and I are made of stuff, star stuff, from stars that died, many billions of years ago. So all carbon-based life can say that it began in the furnaces of other stars. So they're admitting right there in a quiet way that with hundreds of billions of stars in this galaxy by itself, this galaxy, that the numbers of possible worlds right now with life around them would be mind-boggling, would be staggering. Hello, I'm JP Moss. Thank you for subscribing, watching my channel here on YouTube. And the question I put to you would be, what would you want to know most from an alien civilization? Would you want to know their technology and how they got here? Or would you want to know them? And which would you prefer? Even if you could understand the technology, would you want that technology to be part of your everyday life? And here's an interesting thought. If you had the technology, would you use it to explore the galaxy? Well, if that's true, then why don't you introduce yourself to the race that brought you the technology to begin with? There seems to be a lot of heresy with that thought. No, don't do that. Don't. Shun the idea of aliens. But while people will accept, it seems that in science, mainstream science, and skeptics will say, I'm more willing to accept the existence of alien life for two reasons: that it never has arrived on Earth, that it may exist in the galaxy at present time, and the second reason being that it looks nothing like us and we could never communicate with it. So let's go on that tangent in this video just for a minute and talk about that. What does it mean to you, the skeptics, when a grown man such as myself arrives to you and begins to say what you've heard other people say? I've made contact with an alien civilization that is here on Earth that seems to communicate with me in our own language and thoughts, feelings, and the English dialect that I'm speaking right now. That doesn't mean to say that they can't speak Russian, Chinese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, Greek, or other languages. I'm sure they can. But why? Okay, then I go on to say, and one of them is intimately connected with me. She has identified herself to me by name as Beniko. That this is not in fact her name, but an energy signature to know her by, because they are telepathic. So it's her own fingerprint, but a name to call her by. So rather than just saying alien girl hybrid, and then I name her some name, which is quite indignifying. It's like saying Jane Doe to a girl standing in front of you. And you said, we'll just ask her, what's your name? What shall I call you? And that's how she's identified herself to me as. Now, when I say all that, and I've said this in videos before, there seems to be, well, not seems to be, there is, an immediate laughter on the skeptics. Now, before you say, you shouldn't care what skeptics say. You shouldn't care what naysayers. Yes, you should. Because this isn't fantasy, this isn't fiction, this is reality. This is very real. And it's not a belief system, you know. You shouldn't care if this guy's a Pentecostal or a Jehovah's Witness. You shouldn't care what is... Well, you just go to your church and you go to your church. This isn't any kind of religion or belief system. It's a declaration of statement of public fact. I'm saying that fact, yes, this being exists. Fact, yes. Do I have evidence to bring to bear in her existence? Yes, 2 ways. Both electronic voice phenomena recordings, and we have video and photographic evidence to support her existence. And you can hear the entity, she's responding to questions, lots of questions. She responds to the name Benico. It says her name is Benico. Both Spirit Box and EVP. Is she a dead person? No, she's not. Then what does that mean? Again, the thing with Frank Drake's equation, and he's got like 10 or 15 different subsets in his equation, and each subset, it asks a question. How many possible worlds in the galaxy? How many could support life? How many could support intelligent life? How many could be going on at the current time with the human race? How many are... And when you get to the end of this equation, look it up please, Frank Drake's equation, Dr. Frank Drake's equation, it then comes to an answer of about roughly 10,000 planets in this galaxy right now, at this present time, at this video, when I'm sitting talking to you, according to his equation, may have intelligent life on them at the present time in this galaxy. That's very fascinating, except for one thing. Dr. Frank Drake, back in the 1960s, when he came up with this equation, I believe it was the 60s, failed to put one more thing in the equation. And because he left out one very important subset in the equation, it's thrown science, mainstream science, way, way off in the deep end. So mainstream science goes out of its way to build these super large radio receiver dish antennas, very powerful ones, and they've invented even greater, more sensitive ones, receiving billions of signals, radio signals. It could just all be radio static from the galaxy, churning stars, nebula, pulsars, or whatnot, all giving off signals. And they're listening for a faint signal from out in the galaxy that could be from an alien civilization. You've heard of the wow signal, things like this. Well, to the skeptics, I say to you, Dr. Drake, that equation, and in fact all that research, though valid, trying to find order in the chaos, it's just pure science, absolutely pure science. I love it, I do. But it's left one thing out of the equation: dimensions. Higher, lower, side-to-side dimensions. Extra dimensions of space-time, where alien life could exist. How many possible dimensions are there outside of this known dimension? And when you enter that into the equation, you could extend it another subset, and how many in those dimensions would be could harbor worlds, or some kind of a surface of reality where these civilizations could, or life could exist? And go to the next subset, and how many in those other dimensions where life exists could you possibly have intelligent life? All right, so if you extend it out in his equation, then you redo the equation, you come up with life, intelligent life is everywhere. It's all around you. That's the big secret that the CIA have, the NSA. If British intelligence know it, then it's their secret. This is what really they don't want you to know about. Let me please direct your attention away from the little green man from another planet talk just for a minute. Okay, I'm J.P. Moss, researcher, author, experiencer, and let me just take you on a voyage into another dimension. Get ready, get set, here we go. Sit in your chair. You're about to leave. 3, 2, 1. You're already there. You're there. The instant that you begin watching this video, the photons reflecting off me, the light, is obviously now going to be in the past. You're going to be seeing this video. I've already made it. Time will go by, even if after I'm dead, the video still exists somewhere. The dimension of time, the dimension of space, the third dimension, and the fourth dimension encompassing this dimension of time, wrapped up in it, you're already surrounded by the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th dimensions. You have inner dimensions within dimensions that are surrounding you and within every atom of your body, every solid surface, even in space itself. If you could split space itself open, you're entering into another space, like a 5th space, outside this space-time. Now, what's there? And where are the alien life? They're not on other planets, then they're all around you. So the inner space dimension is what the radios are picking up on. And the spirit box picks up on them. The electronic voice phenomena picks up on them. So Beniko is existing both in her dimension and she's entering this dimension partially. She's entering this dimension, intersecting into this dimension at an angle that I can't point into because it goes into a dimension that is beyond the third dimension. So it would be like a two-dimensional person in the flatland universe trying to explain to another flatlander in the two-dimensional world what up means. They don't know what up is. I've said this before in other videos, but this I believe is going to be one of my best videos to date on my experiences and my research. And because I've experienced these things, I have a unique perspective than what most physics students get to have in college. They have to go through a lot of training in college in physics, and they can say, I got a grasp of this concept through the mathematics and through the books I went through, and the lectures and the seminars, and the models and things like that. I go out and I've had experience with these beings firsthand. And so because of these experiences and this connection, intimately connected with this girl, and it is a loving connection with her, I then come away with a broadened and horizoned mind that I'm aware first-hand experience teaches more than you can get in a book. I'm going to tell you right now. And so you go away and you try to explain to other people what is going on. And a lot of times people are completely lost. But this video talks out to the skeptics and says, listen carefully to this. You laugh at this. But in other dimensions, there may be hotter realities, much hotter than this space-time reality, where there's greater energy fields going on. Maybe hotter stars exist. Perhaps it's a universe of green stars. Everything there is a green star. And perhaps carbon is far more abundant in that universe than in this one. So life is far more abundant there than in this one. And that would also mean intelligent life is far more abundant. And I'm going to take you into that journey just for a minute. Imagine a universe of a black sky. You're looking up in the night sky, and every star there is burning brightly green. Okay? Now when the sun rises in the morning, hold on, don't get scared, but it's a green star with an eerie green light that seems to fill the sky around you. So you don't get a blue sky And with a green star, you'd probably get something like a yellow sky. So you'd have a very beautiful yellow sky with auburn-colored clouds, with hues of purple and violet across the sky, dark, dark view. You know, the sunset would be mind-boggling because you'd see a green star setting with a velvety, bluish, mauve-colored yellow sky, okay, and orange sky. And it would be rather a strange thing to see. The vegetation would be mind-boggling in this other universe. It would be absolutely mind-boggling. Now, we occupy the same space as this other universe does with us here. We have the same sort of space with them, but it's a parallel space. We're in the same location, but they're removed. They're in another dimension. So they're in an extra dimension that we can't seem to get in. We don't have the access to get to. Now, because their carbon life is far more abundant in this universe, I'm talking about this other universe, imagine then, for a moment, that they've been around much longer. And because they've been around for a much longer period of time, they're far more advanced, much, much more intelligent. And they've lived on planets in this galaxy. Zeta Reticuli, they call them the Zetas. The mantids, things like this. So insects in that reality, in this other dimension, would also be gigantic. They would be enormous, massive even, monstrous size. It would probably be a universe of many planets, intelligent insects that would be the size of skyscrapers. This is mind-blowing stuff. So let's enter Beniko into this, alien-human hybrid. So she has these beautiful, large, almond-shaped eyes, that long black hair, 4-finger digits. She's this girl, but when you take another look at her, you see the human in her. You also see the alien coming up, but you have to take a gander at this for a minute. What are the Zetas? What are their origins? What is this issue with the large black eyes, the onyx black eyes? What is this with? What is going on here? Like Dr. Jacobs points out, and I think, correctly and rightly so, the Zetas themselves are the early hybrids from the mantids, who themselves have these large, elliptic, multi-compound insect eyes. So we're talking about a universe that has been interceding into this reality for a long time. And they're aware of human life here. They've even helped begin it. They began in those worlds. They've lived on these worlds. They've gone on this universe. They created very large, extremely large devices like Dyson spheres to collect all the energy they can harness from stars. Having lived here for a long time, they moved up to other dimensions and other realms, and they've taken advantage of energy sources that are in those realities. And those higher realities, the mantids then would exist, 7th, 8th, 9th dimensions, where it's believed to be a much hotter space than the space we're sitting in. I don't want to lose you here. I doubt I have. But we're talking about, this is what we're talking about. I'm taking you to another dimension in this video, into the 7th dimension, into the 6th dimension, things like this. So it starts to make a lot of sense when you look at Beniko, and you start to examine the way she looks. It starts to make a lot of sense why they look like that. There seems to be a connection to insects. There seems to be a connection to arthropods, which is a fancy term for insects, or entomology would be the study of insects, things like that. And an entomologist would love this other reality, because the insects there would be absolutely massive. And you shouldn't be surprised that many alien-human hybrids can fly and have wings in their backs. And in fact have dragonfly-like appendage wings on their backs. Wait a minute, what does that sound like? Where are we going with this? Yes, the legends of fairies start to play into this. People have seen humanoid beings of varying sizes, from human to small size, over history. And there's weird evidences leaking from forests that apparently fairies exist. But do they exist? Where do they come from? They're intersecting and entering into this dimension. So mammal life and arthropodic life, or insect and animal life, or mammals and insects, as a convergence evolution where they have merged. And many have been created that way deliberately. Civilizations have lived and flourished. Now, one thing you need to get away from, please get away from, just for a moment, also in this video. Let me take you on another voyage. A voyage out of the space-time continuum you're currently in. So what time frame are we talking about? First of all, because this stuff seems to be coming to the public light in recent years, ufologists and UFO people are now out there writing books talking about aliens and UFOs. And so the public gets a bit of an anxiety in their stomach, and they say, hold on, just a second, Hollywood shows up with videos and movies, War of the Worlds. There must be some pending something about to happen, right? Because we're just beginning to hear about it now. So there must be something about to happen because we're now beginning to hear this. Isn't that right? Wrong. Civilizations from this other dimension and these worlds have been hopping back and forth in this galaxy for billions and billions of years, hundreds of millions of years. So the evidence of life on Mars and the civilization that was there shouldn't surprise you. The evidence of the Zeta Reticulans 39 light years away shouldn't surprise you. You shouldn't be surprised by the mantids and things like this. They're ancient, they've been here a long time. The Native Americans in North America, the Anasazis, I think they worshipped ant-like god creatures. They were giant ants. They were a mass insect race. They were very wise and loving. And there are many instances in history of the connection to the Anunnaki and the Sumerians, who worshipped a race of beings that looked terrifying with wings in their backs. So then again, they look like large insect appendage wings sticking off their backs. The ancient texts, the biblical texts, the first renditions of the cherubim in the Holy Bible, the cherubim were not beautiful-looking angel creatures. They were, in the Old Testament, bizarrely, hideously gross creatures. They were gate guardians of the Garden of Eden, things like this. And they were monster size. And the description of them, again, comes up as being massive insects. Even in the book of Revelations, there's talk of creatures jumping out of the earth with human heads, but, again, scorpion bodies and tails of scorpion. Again, another references to insects. And this goes on and on and on. There's African tribes that worship insect-like deities, insect creatures. Even the Hindu gods and goddesses with their 6 arms, with the blue people with the 6 arms, with a human head. So there's a lot of history connecting to the human race. There's a massive history to this, or at least some hint of some kind of alien contact on this planet long before the 20th century, 21st century ever came about. And this gets extensive, so I won't go into deep details, but it's quite extensive. So then we get into, let's learn about what the culture is of Benico's people. And I'll guide you back to Bashar and Daryl Anka, Channels Bashar. A very spiritual people. Very, very spiritual. But again, from what I understand, and no disrespect to Bashar, would never do that. When you get Bashar, the ambassador, he's the speaking to the human race through Daryl Anka. We're dealing with a very spiritual leader. It'd be like talking to a famous Baptist minister you see on TV every Sunday, like the late Billy Graham, Reverend Billy Graham. You know, it'd be like someone like that, or Jerry Falwell sitting there preaching. But Bashar comes across as like that, where getting to know Beniko, Beniko comes across, and everything she told me about herself and her general civilization as a rule, they're more like you. Then again, here's the other point the skeptics get irritated with. Beniko's very human-like in personality, Jason. And so then they guide and direct people like me back to Star Trek and say, you watch too much Star Trek, where most of the galaxy is full of human-looking people that act human, have human personalities, come across as a very human-like people. And this is the dilemma with a lot of these people. So the skeptics, because so much has been left out of equations like Drake's equation and these kinds of considerations, they tend to look at things from the other way around. They look at the human race and the earth and think this is abundance. They look out in the galaxy and listen for things, don't really hear a lot of signals back. They estimate lots of planets in this galaxy, but again, where's everybody at? So the Fermi paradox is saying that we're all that's here. There's nothing out there. Well, of course, that may be accurate. I'm going to say that paradox could be quite accurate. That life may not be, intelligent life may not be so clearly abundant in this galaxy or in any galaxy. But if we look into another dimension that's around you, they're much closer but further away at the same time. And by that reckoning, when you factor that into that special piece into Drake's equation on the chalkboard, it all opens up in front of you. It all falls in your lap. And you don't have to be an experiencer like me to see what comes out of that equation. It's quite impressive. You then find out the number of intelligent worlds that could exist around us in other dimensions of inner space is millions, perhaps billions. It's actually quite frightening. In a much higher universe, a much hotter universe, you get much more carbon atom content than what's in this one. This is a very cold universe we're in, this lower dimension. It's a very colder universe. So the carbon content is much lower, and therefore life seems to be coming up less abundant. And that would mean less intelligent life as abundant. Well, that sounds pretty intelligent. So carbon content is much higher in these higher, hotter realities, higher dimensions. And that sounds, as I said, it sounds quite intelligent. Wow, Jace, golly. But thank you for watching this video. Thank you for subscribing. Hope this was entertaining in an educational way. But what I'm bringing you is not fictional. It's not fantasy. It's a reality. These experiences I've had. This being is very real. And I'm always trying to find new and interesting ways as this kind of YouTube professor to kind of give you a better grasp understanding of what I've experienced and how it's broadened my mind's awareness on all these matters. So I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you subscribing. If you like this content, thumbs up, share me around, share me all over, anywhere you want to share me. The real experiencers are the ones who can sit down like this and go to a chalkboard and become a bit of a professor and say, look, let me give you some food for thought if you're still a skeptic. If you've ended this video still a skeptic at this point, if you feel like you're going to end, you feel like you started this video a skeptic, you're not leaving it thinking, well, we hadn't considered things like that in science, in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence and how abundant they may be in other dimensions. Well, there's a thought. So they're all around us. Well, because they're all around us, this is something that intelligence feels. You may agree with intelligence on the cover-up. Yeah, this might frighten a lot of people. That they're not out there, far away on some little planet, as sci-fi keeps telling us. They're right next to you. They're all over the place. They're watching you. They're sitting in the room while you're watching this video. They're everywhere. And a sense of them being everywhere is not to scare you, but to enlighten you. And to go, wow. And if one of them happens to fall in love with you and you have a loving relationship with that one, it's an advantage. It's a plus. Because then that one is taking you on a journey all the time with a continuous connection in the heart, which is beautiful. And it is a very special and beautiful, loving connection with her. So think about what I've said in this video. Play it again if you want. Run this through. It's coming from a man with a broadened mind and awareness of physics and sciences from experiences I've had, not through sitting in a college or university, but through experiences I've had, to get you to sit back and think, wait a second, here's something we haven't considered. Look in that direction. Now, why would a layman like me, without that background in college, come up with something like this? Where did you get something like that from? What a thought. Huh. Now, you can either say he's just a very brilliant author with a great imagination who likes to make lots and lots of videos of essentially the same thing and kind of talk at different angles. Or just possibly, after this video, you may stop this video and say, huh, maybe this guy's for real. Whether you believe it or not doesn't make any difference to us. But it's for your benefit that I'm sharing this for you. It's not for my benefit that you subscribe to me or like what I do. It's for your own benefit. It's a wonderful reality. And there are windows into that other reality in certain forests. There are windows where the veils of the reality have thinned out so much it's a window. Windows can be anywhere, and there's even portals. And yes, reptilian intelligent life have gone there too. Lots of fun stuff to think about. And, again, like I said, it's not to just sit here and entertain you, but it is to help enlighten you in the philosophies of interdimensional discussions of physics. Interdimensional philosophy, if you want to call it. Interdimensional Intelligent Life Philosophy 101. And I'm J.P. Moss, and I appreciate you being there and watching. Take care.